So the picture behind me is a slightly older image. It's not that old, it's not me. It's actually a photograph of my eldest daughter, and it was taken just before I accepted my current role at BP Ventures. And in fact, I moved into clean tech investing from being a generalist investor, largely because of her. Tackling the big challenges of net zero and building a low carbon future is why I moved into clean tech investing. I'm often surprised by how much she and some of her peers actually know about the energy transition. She and I were walking to school recently, and she was discussing ways that her teacher, who commutes 90 minutes each way by car into London, where we live, might travel more sustainably. And she was also discussing other ways to build a low-carbon future. These are conversations I would normally only have with my colleagues and the founders that I have the privilege of working with. And yet here I was debating the future of mobility with a toothless 7-year-old who's pretty convinced she knows everything. I realized she actually has some great insights when she turned to me and said, "Mom, the issue with batteries compared to hydrogen is that they're like a mom without coffee." I've had 2 cups, so watch out. Well, can I go back? Well, but I think innovators and investors have a role to play in the energy transition, and it's important to me that I help shape the world that she lives in. At BP Ventures, my colleagues and I invest in game-changing technologies that can disrupt the energy sector. It sounds like a big statement, but it's the only way that BP is going to transition and become a net zero company by 2050. We look at technologies from hydrogen to direct air capture and sort of slightly more nascent technologies like post-quantum encryption and space-based solar. According to the IEA, almost half of the emissions that we need to abate by 2050 to achieve net zero will not be addressed by current technologies. If you put that another way, we've got a significant technology deficit that we absolutely have to overcome. Technologies to get to net zero or to reduce the emissions by 2030 absolutely exist, but the path to 2050 is a lot harder in that it requires game-changing and disruptive technologies that are not yet ready for widespread adoption. And these are in really difficult to abate sectors like heavy industry and long-haul transport. Again, let me go back just a little bit, because there's one thing I want to say on that kind of that piece around these hard to abate sectors on the path to 2050. I think that's actually where patient capital is really required and where balance sheet investors like corporate VCs can play an outsized role. And again, according to our friends at the IEA, there's a significant deficit in the amount of capital needed to affect the transition. Estimates suggest that we'll invest about 1.7 trillion this year, which is less than half of the 4 trillion required to achieve net zero by 2050. Private investors and venture capitalists have really stepped up to meet this challenge. Last year, investors provided nearly 59 billion into 1,200 game-changing climate technologies, but we've still got to do an awful lot more. Timing is everything, as they say. We need an orderly and a swift transition. To give an example, if Britain delays its decisions on climate action to 2030, the costs go up by 45%. So investing early and investing quickly gives you competition. I think one of the other speakers touched on that early. Competition gives you economies of scale, and so it creates a virtuous circle. As I think back to that walk to school with my daughter, I'm reminded why I do what I do, and it's a great privilege to do this. I'm excited by the opportunities, and I think I share that with many of the people in the room, but I also see challenges in front of us. Everything from the technology deficit that we need to decarbonize, to the desperate need for patient capital, to the shortage of capital itself. So my colleagues, Emma and Jonathan, are here today and tomorrow alongside myself. If you're a co-investor looking for someone to tackle some of these big challenges, we'd love to have a conversation with you. Equally, if you're a founder working in some of these areas, we'd love to speak with you. Thank you.